Hello, welcome to Season 9 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. The theme of this season is 100 Years of Horror. We're going to watch two horror movies from every decade, from 1920 to 2020, in chronological order. We want to see where horror came from, how it's changed, and maybe even make some predictions about where it's going. If you want to see the full list of movies we'll be reviewing this season and follow along, then check out our website at thehorrific.com. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. As we've continued our journey through the 100 years of horror movies, we've had some ups and downs. We've had some high budgets and low budgets, and had some very famous directors. We've had some somewhat infamous directors. But this season has felt much less historical over the last couple of weeks.
It has.
And I like that we're not doing necessarily like the big kind of blockbuster modern horror movies, because I feel like we've talked about a lot of those already. Mm-hmm. And Drag Me to Hell, I feel like it was a very good choice by you to include on this list, because it was directed by Sam Raimi, who is a prominent director who, you know, the Evil Dead is very iconic, but this felt like it was sort of crossing over into that place where now horror is a very acceptable genre that makes money. And it doesn't feel, for the most part, nearly as controversial a lot of times. You know, you can have a very prominent director put out like a high-budget Hollywood horror movie that does well at the box office and that a lot of people will see, as opposed to like the 20s when it was a very taboo thing, or, you know, a very narrow margin of people who were interested in the more kind of exploitation horror films of the 60s and 70s, when it was really more of just like a genre thing. Whereas now I feel like it's kind of crossed over, and it's really interesting to see how far it's come over the course of this season.
The other thing too that with this is I think we're starting to see, which I think it really kind of started maybe early 2000s, but you start to see like some CGI effects to it, and I think this one may have had the most CGI out of any film that we've done so far.
Yeah, not really.
Well, it looked like Nintendo 64. Yeah, it looked like Nintendo 64 graphics is what I like to think when I see it. So I think it's good that we did this, because the whole concept of this season is to see like how have things changed. And, you know, change doesn't always mean it's better, you know. Yeah. And I think with some of the effects in that, you know, it's relevant or prevalent in this episode.
Yeah, no, I feel like this one kind of checked a lot of boxes for like very typical 2000s horror. Mm-hmm. But I also don't know that this one's going on any of my like big lists, right? Of like 50 scariest movies of all time or anything like that. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of the effects were not, they were more ambitious than the technology would allow. And in general, I didn't like super hate the movie. It had some limitations. So yeah. I feel like that is just a really good summary of a lot of 2000s horror.
Yeah, I agree. So, and in a season where you are not necessarily comparing apples to apples, but you are kind of like seeing where things have gone, it was kind of a bummer, because we've seen where these horror movies have come from, and you know, we've seen those older horror movies that had better special effects, and it was just like, this is, you know, the computer age, you know, now. And it's also, in my opinion, kind of a bummer, because like this is like middle of the pack. This is not the worst horror movie we've ever seen, but it's definitely not the greatest. And so it's just like middle of the pack. It's one that will be forgotten, in my opinion.
That's a little dark, but okay.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, it's like,
it's realistic. Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, what's the, you know, worst horror movie? This isn't on the list. And hey, what's the best one? This isn't on the list either. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
It was no Under the Skin.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no 28 Days Later.
Yeah, fair. It was a very vanilla.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
All right. Well, then I will introduce it. You can do your fun facts, and then we will get dragged down into the hellish details.
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, Universal Pictures brought us Drag Me to Hell, a supernatural horror movie co-written and directed by Sam Raimi, whose name you might recognize from our recent episode on Evil Dead 2. This movie tells the story of a young loan officer who is cursed by an elderly woman after telling her that her home will be repossessed. She is then on a race against time to undo the curse before her soul is damned for all eternity. Also, Justin Long is in it occasionally. Drag Me to Hell was released to critical acclaim and brought in over $90 million at the box office on a budget of only about $30 million. It can currently be streamed on Peacock or rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video. And if you're anything like me, you might go back and check if you ever actually canceled that Peacock trial that you started a while back during the pandemic to see what it was all about. Because I, as it turns out, was still paying for Peacock, so I got to watch this movie at no additional charge, even though it actually cost me a fairly large amount if I think about it in total money spent.
Well, so did you have the commercial free, or did you have?
Hell yeah, it was a
same,
trial,
same,
of course.
Same, 100%.
But yeah, what did you learn about this movie?
So in this movie, there's a 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88, which I think may have been a similar car to what Terry owned. Doesn't matter. That's the same car that was used in Evil Dead movies. Sam Raimi comes from Evil Dead. So it's the same one that's used there. And then also just a fun fact about that car is in the movie Quick and the Dead, which was set in 1881, Bruce Campbell at Comic-Con in 2005 revealed that a special covered wagon frame covered the vehicle to maintain the movie's time period. So like this was in Quick and the Dead also. Not bad of a Western.
Yeah. No, I like that one a lot, actually.
Yeah, the car's been around all over the place. So Bruce Campbell also, he appears in almost every Sam Raimi film, except for this one. He had to turn it down because he was too busy filming the TV show Burn Notice, which I have never seen.
Neither has anyone else.
Yeah. So Allison, who the main actress in this film, I guess she apparently is allergic to a ton of stuff.
Like good acting.
Yes, precisely. So the dirt that they used in the graveyard scene was like basically mud packed. So it was like not technically dirt, but it was, I don't know, something special, some special type of mud. But supposedly it's because she was allergic to a whole bunch of stuff. And then also supposedly she was like tormented by like the stuff in the film and had to take a shot at some scenes. I didn't necessarily believe it, but that's what she said. And yeah, so that's the facts of this movie. It was more so just about a car that was in a really good horror film in Evil Dead.
I'm convinced that after we take a break for you to have your child,
take a break,
we will come back and just be a Western podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's been my plan for 5 years now.
It's finally paying off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Slowly, like, hey, what about this Western?
Wouldn't it be crazy? Yeah. But yeah, so I guess like high level story wise with this one, you have a girl who works at a bank. She is a loan officer, and she's sad because a different guy is probably going to get the promotion at work. And then she finds out her boyfriend's mom wants him to be dating someone more successful. So then an old woman whose house is getting repossessed comes into the bank, and to show her boss that she can be heartless or whatever she needs to be a manager successfully at the bank, she tells the woman, like, can't help you, your stuff's getting repossessed. The woman curses her, and then just kind of generally creepy things are happening around her for most of the rest of the movie. And she goes to see a psychic, and he kind of gives her some clues that keeps the story moving. And then in the end, she is trying to pass on the curse and thinks that she has done so. And then there's a little bit of a twist ending that we'll get into later. So that was kind of the general setup. And then most of the movie was just kind of her in like creepy-ish scenes. And I thought some of them definitely worked better than others. But some of them just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah. My question for you about this film is how far into realizing that she was a loan officer at a bank did you realize that I'm going to be talking some shit on banks?
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
I just assumed that you picked this movie because it was our only example of like bank teller horror.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I know that you're like specifically attuned to said genre.
Yeah. I'm just saying in the situation, let me just give some quick advice. I'm not an expert in a lot, but I can give advice in this.
And just a little background to set it up. You have worked in a bank for 10, 12 years at this point?
I have worked at in the financial institution for almost 14 years.
Yeah.
So there are options if you can't meet your mortgage payment. And if the financial institution that you have your loan with isn't willing to work for you, there are, a ton of places that could potentially help. It has to probably be local, but, like Salvation Army and places like that. However, if you just stick to your guns, you can get that cover. You can miss your monthly payment. Like
for how long?
Well, I mean, obviously within reason, but in this situation, it would have been her third time, and it's like, well, it's not like it's the third time in a row. Things are crazy. There are leniency. That might just be the mentality of a, I don't know, credit union opposed to a bank. But, there are options out there. So never feel like you have to curse a loan officer when there are other options. So the thing that she did wrong, and the thing that, what was the main actress's name? It doesn't matter. Her real name's Allison. The thing she did wrong is she just straight up said, no, there's nothing we can do for you. But instead, you could say, well, here are some other options. Well, let's reach out to, United Way has some good contacts if you have United Way in your area. There are things that you can do. That's just my soapbox.
I'm just saying, if you're competing with an alpha like Stu, you've got to flex pretty hard.
That's true. Yeah, and also, like, I feel like the mentality of that manager is definitely bank related.
Yeah.
Being a assistant branch manager should never decide if you're going to be shitty to a human or not. Now, at a bank, being a branch manager is a huge thing. Or at least was. But never let that, change your judgment on humans. We're here to help each other out, right? And if that did roll over onto the balance, her monthly payment, that's just more interest we're getting in the end. So, because they'll have to pay interest for this month, and they would have to pay interest for the extra month. So, yeah, I mean, there are things that can be done. Sorry, that was my little soapbox. I had to.
Yeah, so COVID sucks. Times are hard. If anyone has been having trouble with payments, I hope you feel a little bit more empowered to go do something about it.
Yeah, there's things you can do. Stick to your guns and Karen it up. You turn into a Karen and you get to that manager because they can get the things done. Or
you just learn magic.
That's true. Or you could send someone to hell.
Yep.
But, yeah. It was, like, I get frustrated. So, my thought with the situation, that is a very real outlook with this movie. What I was thinking was, like, there are people who are dying for that assistant manager position. and like they're willing to sacrifice it all. It's like, well, that doesn't make too much sense. And like in this case, it kind of frustrated me even more because like we didn't know that her boyfriend's mom wasn't approving of her yet. Like this happened before she talked with him.
Yeah.
So she had like that desire, and if you work for a company that's just dangling over your head,
yeah,
get out. That's the realistic approach to this. Now we're also talking about a movie where someone was cursed and is sent to hell, but anyway.
Yeah. So I don't think acting or story were necessarily the strongest parts of this movie.
Nah.
I felt like a lot of the interactions between people were not like super compelling, especially like you were saying, even just the setup of like the premise of the story is like, motivating factors for people's actions and things like that. What I felt like this movie more so was just a sort of loose narrative with space for creepy scenes and Sam Raimi to exercise a bunch of ideas for like kind of horror scenes.
Yeah.
And some of them landed better than others. But I have to tell you, the one where the old woman attacks her in the car in the parking lot when she's leaving, like after that first day, and the old woman is like gumming her face.
Yeah.
That destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
I was so grossed out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. But
that breath was nasty.
But just the idea of like the toothless like gums on her face. Oh my God!
Right.
Why? I don't ever want to see or think about that again.
Because if you're in a fight and it comes down to like having to bite someone to get like that's some serious stuff. I feel like that's like the fighting for your life kind of thing. If you're getting attacked and you're losing and you think you bite the hell like anything, you bite chunks out of them.
I'm just saying, like the idea of someone's toothless gums on my face, I could not be more repulsed by. Like that gave me a very visceral reaction that I hated. And that is one thing that a lot of horror movies from this season haven't done. So I almost sort of like applaud this for that, even though I hated it.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Just because that's kind of what you want from the horror movie. It's like that like makes your stomach turn.
Yeah.
Horror reaction.
Yeah, I feel like this had for me, it was, I can watch like some of the stupid like hostile torture things, but you get like some gums on it because it was like the chin, so exactly. Spit was getting in the mouth.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, hold on, you just crossed the line.
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm being honest with watching this, like when I was talking about earlier about being middle of the pack, like the CGI kind of frustrated me, but it didn't like destroy the film for me. It was just like, yep, it was just like non-existent almost, where it was just like expected, like once you see the first time, you're like, yeah, this is just the start and this is how bad it is. It's only going to get worse. Mm-hmm. So that was frustrating, but at the same time, like it was an easy watch. Like the only thing I was kind of confused about was just some of the setup. Like I didn't realize how the main actress knew that Stu was like sold that information.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Like there was just things I didn't understand how they knew, and like, well, maybe it got cut out or something.
Yeah.
And like it was also like, when it opens the scene and it says like 1960 whatever, and it starts with the son, being possessed and stuff. That it's going back to that. So like when they were talking about like, so it was just a waiting time. Like how long until it comes out that that's either, she's a relative of him, or, where does that come? So in a way, it kind of, I felt like it almost kind of hurt it because it was like, I was expecting something. And when I got it, it was just like, yep, that's it. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is crazy.
This one for sure tipped its hand a lot. Mm-hmm. So I never really felt like anything really got me by surprise. And I noticed that, I meant to talk about that earlier, that beginning scene where it's like the classic horror intro scene followed by resetting the story with a modern couple and a person's life that's not creepy being built out. And it's just like, okay, this is this is peak 2000s or like the established formula of how you started off. But there were a lot of things in this one that I feel like, and the intro scene made me think of this, where the production of the movie I felt like didn't support the horror vibe. So like that intro scene, it's like in broad daylight, and it's clearly meant to be like suspenseful or scary, I guess. But then like the family brings the cursed boy to the woman's house for help, demon attacks, kid jumps off the balcony, and it's all like super dark. But it also happened at like noon in the summer. You know, like everything was just really bright, and the feel of like that didn't at all match sort of that suspenseful horror scary thing. Like, why was it not happening at night with, you know, the flickering flames on the walls and stuff? Like, it could have been such a darker thing. And then I also felt like the sound mixing on this one. Oh, it was the worst. I usually complain about the music and sound effects being too loud compared to the dialogue, and so you can't understand what's going on. This one, I felt like, had the opposite problem. Like, a lot of the jump scares and action sequences didn't land as hard as they could have because the sound support didn't make it like hit like it should have compared to everything else. Like it just, when I said vanilla earlier, I didn't just mean like how scary it was. I meant like it almost felt like compressed as far as the way that all the things about how the movie was made followed up the attempted scares within the plot of the movie.
Yeah. No, I felt like this was the worst. I felt like the whole time we were turning up and turning down.
Yeah.
The movie, and it was just like, this is. I also like. I was just like, this is the most annoying thing in the world, because you can't, like, there's no level ground. Like, I just want flat sound. So that was kind of frustrating. But and also believing that Jason Long, if that was Justin Long, was a doctor,
coin collector. I like how the coin collecting thing only played into the story long enough for him to put a coin in an envelope and then refer to it later to drive home that was foreshadowing.
Right. There's a bunch of foreshadowing in this for sure. Yeah.
As soon as I saw the button in the envelope, I was just like, yep, I know what's happening with this.
Yeah.
So that was, again, like the ending, the big reveal was she dug up the corpse of the old woman who had cursed her and gave her back the button to try and transfer the curse back to her. And then you find out afterwards that she had not successfully done that. She had given her the coin that she had given her boyfriend earlier that for some reason was put in an identical envelope in his car. And so the curse wasn't transferred, and then she got dragged to hell.
Yeah. I didn't get the whole concept of why, like, the coin was why he got the coin and just, like, put it in his bag if it was so important, because it was
so that she could mix it up with the button later. That's what I was saying before, is like that whole piece of it only existed as like a thing to drive the plot and the ending that they wanted to have. So there was and you know, also it was like, the guy said when she was trying to do the seance, like, why didn't you tell me sooner? He's like, well, I didn't want to be responsible for be the reason why anyone's in hell. And you're like, yeah, but you could have just said that from the get-go and been done with it. Yeah.
Like, that's not complicated. I don't know, it was strange.
It also felt like nothing ever really presented that much danger.
Yeah.
Like the old lady attacked her, but she just got away. And then the demon shadow thing was in the house, but then it doesn't kill her. And then the demon possessed stuff at the seance, or the demon is possessing stuff at the seance, but then they like ask it to leave and it does. And then like that handkerchief attacked her in the car, but then she tore it up. And then that cross fell down on her in the grave, but then it didn't like knock her out or anything. Like, it's just like, okay, we just get to keep going. And that freaking handkerchief reminded me too much of Ash's hand from Evil Dead 2.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was like kind of the cartoony, annoying thing. But,
See, that was the thing, like, when talking about like Evil Dead 2, like, because it came from like the B-style films, I felt like it was a little bit more acceptable. But when you're trying to have a big production film like they were doing with this, it's like you can't do those same type of things, you know?
Yeah. I did notice the like outline on the wall in the shed of where the drill was. That was like what was there around the chainsaw in Evil Dead 2, and that was kind of a funny reference. But yeah, and you were talking about earlier about like the bad CG. When the curse was transferred to the goat, I like laughed out loud just because it was so bad.
Yeah.
But then it transferred into that random guy, and then he responded by dancing and then vomiting a cartoon cat.
Yep.
It's just like, okay,
this is what we're down to.
All right.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating.
But yeah, I mean, typical 2000s PG-13.
Yeah.
Teenager horror movie-ish.
And not everyone can be bangers,
Yeah, true.
So you kind of have to just, go with it.
Yeah. But that was our last movie of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Now we are cruising right along to the 2010s.
We got Bone Tomahawk coming up.
Quite excited for that one.
We have The Conjuring. What is it? I keep wanting to say Strangers Pray at Night.
Oh, The Devil Made Me Do It?
Devil Made Me Do It.
Well, that's 2020. It's not 2010s.
Oh, yeah. We got... Wait, 2010s... Oh, we need to find another one. Because the second one I did was for Quiet Place 2.
Which is also 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got Bone Tomahawk, and then you get to pick our final of 2010s? Oh my gosh.
I have really wormed my way into making a lot of selections this season, which I did not plan on. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also part of the half-assing that I am very well known for.
I'm just saying, if you provide a half-assed job and I provide a half-assed job, we got ourselves a full-ass job.
We got a whole ass at that point.
No one can ask for more.
Yeah. But, hey, I didn't feel like I lost anything watching this.
Nah. I mean, this one wasn't like... where I was just like, I am wasting my time. I'm debating turning this off,
Yeah, it wasn't like the 90s Nosferatu. Was it 90s?
Right. Yeah. This was a very fine movie to have on in the background.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think that's all I got.
Appreciate you. Shout out to Australia.
Yeah, shout out Australia. Shout out Real Good.
Yeah.
For a real good time, go to Real Good app, iOS.
Yeah, and I would suggest setting the filters to like all streaming services when you're looking for something, and then just going to see if you have a trial you forgot to cancel, if it's on one that isn't free.
Yeah, also, I wouldn't like sign up for an account with them because you don't have to, and I don't know if it asks for like your credentials for these sites, but don't put that in the app because I'm not going to be responsible for your security. So just use it to see if you have it, and then use your Amazon Fire Stick or Apple TV, whatever you have, to watch it.
I would say just exploit the free portions of this app until they start sponsoring us to tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com. Or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.
We are recording Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, you watched Drag Me to Hell?
Unfortunately.
I thought we were doing... I'm just joking. Yeah, I watched that one too. Whoops.
So this is how white trash I am. I signed up for the free trial of Peacock so I could watch the 2 seasons of the Jeff Foxworthy show.
Nice.
Yeah, that was strictly it.
You might be a redneck if you've ever started a Peacock free trial so you can watch
I was
the first
drunk and Katie was in bed, man. I had to go for the gold.